Hello, everyone, and welcome to 40,000 Layers. In this show, I'm Tashna. Hello. I'm learning to paint a whole bunch of minis and hopefully getting better at it. I think I'm getting a bit better at it. And Sheepy, aka The Wandering Inn, is teaching us about Warhammer 40k lore. Sheepy, have you gathered yourself enough to say hello?
Hello.
Good job. I'm so proud.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to the folks supporting us on Patreon already over at patreon.com/40,000 layers. And those wonderful folks are Ian, Mark Numbers, particularly Money, Damned Man, Ramona, V Mushroom, Retrograde Vector, Azian, and Grey Blue One. So thank you very much for supporting us and making the show happen. And we really appreciate it. If you guys do enjoy the show and want to support, you can head over to Patreon and check it out. There are Patreon exclusive posts, videos, a custom Discord channel, and patrons can vote for each month's topic. So over this month, they have been deciding, and the topic for November is going to be the orcs. Yay!
I briefly considered seeing if I have my orc voice filter on,
Mm.
but yeah, I don't remember what any of my voice filters are, except for I think number 5 is Moby.
Oh, we love Moby.
Is number 4 like? Do I risk it?
Yes.
Oh, I do. Okay.
Why not?
No, no, this isn't it.
It's almost Moby.
Oh, no. Oh, well, yeah. Well, this one's the orc one. Whoa.
Whoa.
I think this one's Moby.
There's
Actually.
Moby.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. I have to go away now because I was supposed to do an orc thing, but
Anyway. I don't know where that bit was going, so I was just like, fuck it.
I'm just going to end it. The vote for December, which I can't really believe it's December already, is up, and the options are going to be the Tau, the Emperor, or the Tyranids. So if you want to, and you're a patron, make sure to go over to Patreon and vote for what you would like to see and hear about in December. But today, when we're working on the Sslyth model, which is right here for us, and it's going to be the Drukhari. So,
Yes.
Sheepy, would you like to tell us the new patron idea?
I thought you were going to ask me to talk about the Drukhari.
The Drukhari.
Like, wait, but
No,
I
Patreon
still have
idea.
To do my Patreon thing. So those of you watching the video, hey, what's up? How's it going? I'm Sheepdog. We have a new thing for the Patreon, which is going to be in action going forward. For every $25 pledged to the Patreon going forward, we will be releasing another kind of podcasty style chat about Space Marine chapters. So we already have one for Magnus the Red that goes along with finishing off the painting for Vortimus.
Yep.
In the future, we'll do things like Tash will record herself painting. You know, if she doesn't finish the Sslyth, she'll record herself painting the Sslyth, and we'll record a little podcast chatting about all the Space Marine chapters and their Primarchs and stuff as extra content for the for the patrons who pledge support to the show.
Yeah.
Which goes towards paints and paying both myself and Tash, and eventually towards other things. There's a goal for a second show, which will make it bi-monthly.
Bi-monthly. Wouldn't that be fun?
Bi-monthly is every 2 months, isn't it?
It'd be fortnightly. Bi-weekly?
Every
2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks, we'll be doing a show once we hit that goal.
Jesus.
So, if you want to support the show, if you want to support what we're doing here and you're enjoying it, head on over to Patreon, give it a look, decide if you want to, and all that type of thing. And you get access to, like, we need to do a Q&A for the...
We do, yes, a little wrap up of Chaos.
Yeah, for Chaos. So we'll probably, you'll be seeing that soon as well, Patreon.
That'll be fun. For me.
Yeah. So yeah, we are also in the process of discussing. At a certain point in the Patreon, we'll just release all of the extra content I just spoke about, kind of like onto YouTube, so everyone can watch it. But we'll have a talk and we'll decide when that will be.
But for now,
currently it's undecided.
painting
And Drukhari.
This is my snake boy.
Yeah.
He's primed in Chaos Black right now, so it's very hard to see.
Yes. Which is why it's so bright.
Which is why it's so bright. But I was like, it's going to be good because I'll give myself a challenge and paint some scales, and then I regretted it almost immediately.
Oh, yeah.
So that's fun for me.
Well, I think people are going to start seeing a trend soon where it's like, hey, Tash, we're doing a Drukhari episode. What do you want? And Tash is like, I want a snake.
Snake.
It's like, we're going to do chaos. What do you want? I want a dog.
There is a lot of, every time there has been a dog, I want to paint it. And I've had to stop myself from getting the puppy models. Unfortunately.
Well, I mean, there wasn't really one for for the
Chaos?
sorry. For the Drukhari.
Oh, no.
There was the Chimera.
Yeah, it was the Chimera. They're puppies. Are you being mean to my puppies?
I mean, if they may be puppies for someone, but I'm not really sure like they'd sell very well on the human market.
I think they would. People buy pugs.
Yeah, but pugs have like an ugly cute to them. Chimeras are just like, hey, we took a dog and turned it inside out and also gave it tentacles with spears on the end.
Yep. Be a great guard dog. You disagree?
I mean,
who'd want to mess with you if you had a chimera as a guard dog?
That's true.
Okay, I hate this already.
What, you haven't started yet?
I just am so stressed by it. Okay, where's the right about there?
You have to start somewhere.
I know.
Speaking of starting somewhere, the Drukhari, also known as the Dark Eldar. Man, they're dicks. The end.
The end. Right, okay.
No, so do you know much about the Dark Eldar? I don't think we've really
just the memes.
Yeah, like we had them a little bit in our campaign.
I mean, Peachy played the Drukhari.
A Drukhari.
The whole Drukhari. And I mean, it was pretty much a comedy show, anyway.
Yeah.
So I don't feel like I have a great understanding of them, other than they like torture, because because we covered this in the Eldar episode about preventing their souls from going to Slaanesh, but also some of them just like it.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to know how much is like, well, this is us and this is who we are, and this is us and this is how we have to live. The Drukhari are essentially space pirates. Like if you force me and you say, Sheepy, describe the Drukhari in like 2 words, I'd say space pirates.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, like, they're not super organized, and they don't have, like... The weird thing about the Drukhari is they don't exactly look to conquer the galaxy. They're probably the most evil and the most, like, the worst people to get captured by, maybe even worse than Chaos.
Okay.
But... in a weird way, they're like the least classic evil dominate the galaxy, you know?
Yeah, they just want to, torture and kill you for their own ends, not for
Yeah,
societal.
they just like going out and getting slaves, and they like to murder, they like to torture, they like other things that are just as bad. And I mean, they're arrogant assholes, just like the elves, the space elves, because they're just like. And this is where we get into the whole let's call it interesting hypocrisy of Games Workshop.
Okay.
Considering how closely Games Workshop guards its IPs, it's very fucking derivative.
Yeah.
It's like the Katachan Jungle Warriors. There's a film called Rambo.
Like my cat.
Yeah, like that's pretty much what Katachan is.
My cat. Yeah, especially like in fantasy, you can see right away that there's.
Yeah, and this is the thing, is like elves and dwarves and everything, they're very, very prevalent in just general fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to, I think elves and I know dwarves definitely go back to Norse mythology. I think elves may do as well. I think even dark elves are from like Norse mythology, maybe. But that just might be me reading in too much into the Marvel film with Thor in, where there are dark elves, and I'm like, well, it said Thor, so clearly it's
it's Norse.
But yeah, they are essentially dark elves. Like you take the fantasy dark elves, they're kind of dark, they're kind of murdery, they're kind of evil, and then you translate them into space, and that's what they are. They even live in a freaking alternate basement dimension.
Basement dimension?
Well, the webway.
Oh, of course.
So they like. Interestingly enough, the elves, the dark
elves,
the Dark Eldar, the Drukhari, kind of don't like. They own places in the real space in the galaxy, but they're mostly just chilling Komorok.
Just chilling out, having a relax.
Yeah.
Doing crimes.
And then they go out raiding, they get slaves, they bring them back. They don't really ally with anyone either, as far as I know. They just kind of like the Eldar, the Aeldari will if they need to, they'll ally with like the Imperium, maybe the Tau, I don't know. Oh god, I really want to do the Raven Guard episode now, because I've got a really funny story about the Raven Guard and the Tau.
Well, you can't tell me.
I know, but it makes the Raven Guard look so crappy.
Well, we'll talk. Maybe we could talk about it in the Tau episode.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Whenever we have that, because it's Orcs next.
And it is.
I have a guess that the next one's going to be Tyranids. I'm not sure.
I really look forward to Tyranids. I'm going to feel sorry for them. And then they're going to be my second favorite.
I don't think you're going to feel sorry for the Tyranids.
I feel like maybe.
I don't know how you would. There are literally no sub stories for the Tyranids.
That you know of. I'm going to write Tyranid fanfiction. Origin stories of the Tyranids and why they have to leave their home.
Well, I mean, there is a theory that possibly they're running from something in another galaxy, but
there you go, sorted.
There's also a distinct possibility that surrounding the galaxy that 40k is set in is just a massive Tyranid horde that's slowly closing in on the galaxy.
Why not?
Well, because they've turned up from all ends of the galaxies.
We had the map in the
Yeah, it's kind of scary.
They just wanna hang out and eat everything,
Yeah.
Who doesn't?
Plus, the Tyranids killed the squats, who are the space dwarves.
You say that like it's a good thing.
The squats were weirdly popular, actually. But they still got squashed by Games Workshop.
Oh.
There was a reason for it. I think it was fairly reasonable. The squats were literally like, you know how the Eldar have their own feel to them. Like clearly they've been developed past just being space elves.
Uh-huh.
The squats were just space dwarves. Like there was nothing different. Like they didn't change any. They were just, yeah.
Okay. They were like, we've got to get rid of that. Okay.
Rip our space dwarves, you know. But yeah, no, the Dark Eldar don't really like to ally. I think the best that could be said is there may be times when they attack the same place someone else is attacking, and they decide not to attack the other people attacking.
I don't know, like, have now we've been talking about Tyranids, sorry. Have they had any experience? I'm probably jumping ahead. Experience with the Tyranids and ended up allying with people, or are they just like, no, we will die in peace?
Have the Tyranids ever allied with?
With the Drukhari, like.
Have the Drukhari ever allied with people against the Tyranids?
Yeah.
I think there are instances, being fair, where the Drukhari and the Aeldari work together.
Mm-hmm.
While they're different factions, they are the same race, so that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
And there are, I do know there is a book detailing a love story between an Aeldari and a Drukhari.
Beautiful.
Between an Eldar and a Dark Eldar. I haven't read it, but I kind of want to because I've heard it's quite good.
It's gonna be like Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah, and we may go back over things that we've spoken about before, just because the Dark Eldar and the Eldar are fairly closely linked together.
But that's kind of nice. I like revisiting them. It's been a little while since we've spoken about the Aeldari.
Yeah. Well, for us, it's been a couple of months. For people watching the videos, depending how quickly they watch it, it may be the same day.
Hi, bingers.
But no, the Eldar and the Dark Eldar and the Harlequins and and the Exodites as well were all originally just the Eldar, the Aeldari.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we all know, and we'll go into it a bit more detail in a little bit later, like what happened specifically to the Dark Eldar when Slaanesh burst into the scene. But Slaanesh burst into the scene and was like, "Hey, yo, what up? Give me your souls." Which I always thought, very greedy. But,
I think quite reasonable.
And now we've spoken about it in the Eldar episode, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
but there are quite a few races which were designed essentially or created by the old ones, who we don't like here because Tash has, for some reason, decided to side with the Necrons and the Necron tier against everything else. Therefore, we hate the old ones because the old ones were dicks.
Well, they were dicks. Like
They were dicks. They were.
The Necrons would never have been an issue if they'd just not been dickheads.
Well, in the defense of the old ones, the Necrons were like, "Yo, what up? Give us your shit." And the old ones were like, "Nah, you can't really threaten us." And then the Necrons were like, "Well, then we'll declare war on you, even though we're obviously going to lose." And then they went and sulked in their homeworld for a while, and then made a deal with a space crystal, which sucked their souls out. I'm just saying, like, it's not like the Necrons were nice people.
You don't know personally.
I mean, I did the research. I do. Sometimes I feel like I'm too like nice about the bad circumstances. Although, having said that, I went into great detail on the tragedy of the Eldar, and Tash is like, fuck those stony bitches.
Mainly because she was such a pain to paint.
Is that the basis for whether or not you feel sorrow at the destruction of almost an entire empire of?
You know, it is part of it. Yes,
Really?
it is
Wow.
a factor. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Okay.
It's a factor.
Well, hopefully, if we ever do a historical lore drop, the Romans will be easy to paint. Otherwise, you'll be like, wow, damn, fuck those Romans. So, Rome burned in a day, and Tasha's like, yeah, well, they're difficult to paint, so fuck 'em.
Well, look, they did try and conquer the world, so like, what do they expect?
Right.
Let's all just stab Caesar.
That happened ages before the fall of Rome.
Just shout words about Rome. It's fine.
Okay.
Should totally stab him again, though.
They stabbed him like 37 times.
Not enough times.
Either 37 or 52 or something.
Lots. Not enough.
So should we get back on the Dark Eldar?
This is kind of how we are today.
Yeah.
Apologies. Non-apologies.
Hey, I didn't drive this bit of the segue.
You mentioned Rome.
I did mention Rome. That is my fault, yes. So...
Drukhari. They don't ally with people very often, but if they do, it could be the Aeldari. Got it.
In general, I would say the Eldar would be the choice of... Because they share the same like history and artifacts, they're basically the same race. Like, there are times when they both hold importance on a world, or there's something important there for both of them.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll kind of like ally together, or just like not attack each other and both defend it or attack it, or whatever it was. So I'm trying to decide whether we should start talking about Commorrah, because that's always an interesting conversation, which also goes into the webway a bit more. No, you know what? Let's talk about the origins, because essentially, before Slaanesh was born, the Eldar were basically created by the Old Ones, along with the Kroorks and the Drukhari and a few other races, pretty much essentially designed to fight against the Catan, the Star Gods, and also the Necrons and Necrontyr. Well, Necrons mostly. Like, the Necrontyr didn't really have much of a fucking chance. But the Eldar were essentially designed to be very, I want to say susceptible, but I guess it's more like in tune with the Immaterium, with the warp. That's why so many of them are psychers, why they're so, kind of... they're also... The way they experience things is very different from humans.
Mm-hmm.
So they hit much higher peaks of happiness and pleasure and all the good, and they hit much lower lows of all the other like negative emotions and things like that, which I think is part of the reason why the Imperium hasn't really like birthed a god, whereas the Eldar have.
Yeah, because there's so many humans, but
back then there were so many Eldar as well, but they experienced things so kind of acutely and on such a very specific, refined way that it just essentially created that possibility. Whereas for humans, they experience everything in a massive, like, tumultuous, like, cloud of emotions. So I think possibly that's the reason why, even though there's so many humans and so many orcs, and although the orcs have a bit of...
I was gonna, like, I know a little.
But yeah, all of the Eldar are very agile, very sleek, just like, you know, fantasy elves are. They're also obviously much more technologically advanced, and technically speaking, the Drukhari are like a massive threat at the same time as not being a threat at all.
Because they just don't.
They're
They
really
don't go out to fight.
they're really dangerous. They do kind of fight amongst themselves a lot anyway. And they just don't have the same, like, galaxy conquer. They like power, and they like power over everything and all that type of thing. I can't say I've ever seen any instance of them trying to even vaguely take over the galaxy or, you know, wipe out all life in existence or anything. You know, they're not the Necrons, they're not the Tyranids, they're not the, well, the Orcs just like to fight, so.
They just want to be and not get eaten.
Yeah. But now, honestly, like I think there's an interesting amount of, I want to say, self-hate, but it's like the Drukhari. I don't think they're particularly, you know, happy about their status, which is probably why quite a few of them are willing to go and jump in with the Yanari and, you know, the whole new Eldar trend that's happening. Because just basically it's like, oh, good, an opportunity to not have to be Drukhari. Yay.
I mean, that makes sense. As long as, you know, things don't go awry with that.
Yeah. I mean, at the time before Slaanesh, after the Necrons had kind of gone to sleep and the old ones and the Catan had kind of buggered off and disappeared, the Eldar were like the only actual power in the galaxy. You know, they had a massive empire. They like reached the heights of technology and culture and all of these things. And now, after the whole Slaanesh thing and, you know, the rise of humanity, like the Eldar are kind of a wreck. You know, they're essentially floating around space in massive craft worlds.
Yeah.
They still maintain their, you know, the essence of what they were, but they're just nothing comparatively anymore. You know, if a craft world shows up outside your home world, you're going to cry and be like, well, shit, I'm screwed. But if they wanted, the Imperium could dedicate themselves to tracking down and wiping out the Eldar craft worlds.
So mean.
It wouldn't be a good idea because all of the other Xenos races would be like, oh, what's up? You're concentrating on something? Well, you're not paying attention to us then. Yay!
Yay, let's conquer.
But yeah, it's the same with the Drukhari to a certain extent. Although it's very, very difficult to get at the Drukhari because they're in the webway. And
yeah, and that has its own worries and fears and protections.
Well, the reason the Drukhari aren't a threat currently is because they do have a tendency to fight each other and to backstab, and, you know, they all have their own self-interests, and they're not particularly interested in serving, you know, one lord to raise them to Emperor of the Galaxy or something.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's the main reason. But there has, and we'll talk about it probably a bit later, but there has been at least one time when the Imperium actively tried to, like, attack Comorar, which is the bit in the webway where it's the big city in the webway where the Drukhari chill. Right. It didn't go beautifully for anyone involved, aside from one person who also we'll get to. He's a dick, and he's kind of also awesome as well. So
okay, so my new favorite. His
name is Asdrubal Vecht, and he is an asshole, but he's a Drukhari, so
it's to be expected.
Yeah. And he's also kind of the chief Drukhari in a way, but, you know, it's like, so he's kind of chief asshole. So, what you remember what happened with the Eldar, where like they got to the height of their power, they got a little bit bored, and they were like, "Oh, drugs and torture and sex cults? Hell yeah!"
Hell yeah.
They basically had an extended like century of Woodstock, and then a god was born and ate everyone's souls.
One time.
Yeah, it was the one time. The Drukhari were the ones who were like under arrest for
crimes.
Why would you sound your siren right up until the second you're outside my window and stop it there? Like either just keep it going or just don't turn it on.
They just don't want you to record today.
No, they don't want it. They don't like it.
Oh wow, that's mean.
So yeah, the Drukhari essentially were the ones who had fallen the most, almost.
Okay.
Because the webway gate was something that the old ones created, and the Eldar kind of were like, okay, cool, we can use this too because we're great and we're awesome and all that type of thing. The Drukhari like went and built secret. They were in Eldar space as well a little bit, but the majority of the Drukhari, I think actually all the Drukhari, they're basically the ones who survived the birth of Slaanesh. They were in the warp in the webway, and they had like a big city of called Komarah in there that was essentially just horrific central. Anything like depraved and horrific and just the worst that probably happened in there, to be honest.
Oh, okay. So at least that's in the warp and immaterium.
Yeah, and so I'm not 100% sure exactly. Sometimes the description can be quite vague. I'm not exactly sure, like, did Slaanesh get birthed in real space and then cause a rift going into the warp or something? I'm not 100% sure. Pretty much what happened was when Slaanesh was birthed, the shockwave or like the after effects of the birth of Slaanesh just caused loads of Eldar to fucking die, and some of them, like I think if they're a little bit further away, the entire planet of Eldar would go insane and just murder each other.
If they were further away, or if they were
further away.
Oh.
Yeah. But the thing is like Slaanesh could have been birthed, right, and barely any of the Eldar been killed and everything. The problem would have still maintained that the second that the Eldar die, their essence essentially goes into the immaterium, and Slaanesh eats it.
Yeah.
Which is why the whole Soul Stone, Spirit Stone thing had to be figured out, because otherwise, every Eldar death where their soul isn't trapped into a stone just makes Slaanesh more powerful.
And they get tortured for all eternity, which is also not fun.
Yeah.
But the Dark Eldar don't have those stones, right? Or do they?
No, they don't.
Okay, because this guy has a gem, and I was suspicious.
Well, that's the Sslyth.
Yeah, but I mean, he's a little minion guy, so...
Games Workshop do like gems. I
was like, don't be starting with this nonsense again.
But yeah. So because they were designed how they were designed, they were much more connected to the warp, all that type of thing. Mm-hmm. They had I think the issue with the Eldar is they never had a super massive problem as they were still exploring and doing things. The problem is when they kind of reached the pinnacle of what they could do, they started to degrade. And because they can be so happy and so good and so perfect and everything, it comes with it the ability to basically sink even deeper, even like worse than humans can. You know, so it's like a double-edged sword. The Eldar have the potential to be like the best, the most goodest, and the nicest, the same way they have the potential to be horrific assholes. So
yeah.
Once they kind of reach their pinnacle, instead of turning inwards and seeing about, you know, perfecting themselves or whatever, they essentially turned inwards and were like, all right, we're bored. Let's see what fun we can have.
Let's see what's good. And let's make a god by accident.
Yeah, I mean, you know.
Orican
Like-
would have known.
Orican, I bet you Orican knew. Oh, just a very quick sidebar on that. I've started listening to The Infinite and the Divine.
Yeah. How is it? Enjoying it?
It is fucking funny. There's a there's a bit where Orican's on his ship and they're fighting the orcs. Like there's an orc cruiser, like kind of, you know, in space, and they're over this planet. And Orican is like, he like relays over to Trazen, and he's like, "Hey, can orcs breathe in space?" and Trazen's like, "How is it possible that you don't know the answer to that question? Are you an idiot?" And he's like, "I don't care about all these other tiny little races things, because essentially Trazen's a mega nerd and he just likes collecting things." There's one point where he goes to a Necron tomb to like take some shit. And there's a greetings, like an automated greetings from one of the sleeping Necrons who've like recorded it, and he's like, "Oh, I kind of expected you to come here at some point, Trazen. You can take a little bit, but don't take the piss, otherwise we'll fuck you up."
We
He's
knew
like,
you'd
"Uh-huh."
be here.
So yeah, like there's a lot. It's almost like a buddy cop film.
Aww.
You know, where you have like the stick in the mud and the more adventurous kind of younger one. And Orican, I think there's one point where Orican spends like 1,000 years researching something. And
You
then
gotta be sure about certain things.
Yeah, and then he gets like, I think he goes to one of his ships, and he's going somewhere in a ship. This is the point where I think I've only listened to once, because I'm doing other things while I listen. I don't always catch everything, but I just remember that he gets Trazen sends him a message by one of his like robot Necrons, who like brings it to him, and it's like this thing that they're both kind of fighting over. And Trazen's like, "Here, you can have this. I don't want beef with you anymore. This is yours." And and Orican's like, "Oh, cool, the thing I'm looking for." And he's like, "Wait a second, it doesn't look like the thing I'm looking for." and then like about 10 to 15 Kathchan devils, which are essentially the most dangerous animal on Kathchan, jump out of this like hidden portal thing that's in the device that Trazen sent him.
Why would you be so mean?
they like attacked Orican quickly and kind of ripped him up a little bit, and then ran off into his ship and infested his ship. And Trazen's like, they breed really quickly, so you've got like 12 hours to wipe them out before they double in size. He's like, have a nice time, Orkin. Bye.
What a dude.
Trayson's such a
I'm
dick.
like, what? So you mean to
Oh.
Orkin? He's a bro.
I told you.
I told you.
Yeah, there's a whole load of back and forths. I think at some point Trayson buries Orkin for like 5,000 years.
Oh my god.
And Orkin comes out and he's pissed.
Yeah.
But there's because Orkin's a chronomancer. There's a sorry, I'm completely sidebarring.
Yeah,
this,
we're
by the
just
way, guys.
off talking about books now.
But because Orkin's a chronomancer, which he's like the only one, and he's the only one who has some control over time. They're having right at the beginning, Orkin steals something from Trayson, and Trayson calls him to court for the Necrons to basically like
For the Drukhari.
Yeah, I've got Drukhari up on my tabs. It made me say Drukhari. For basically the Necron Supreme Court to lay down a ruling, and they have to agree on an overlord type, a really high Necron to pass judgment. And Orkin is like, okay, we'll go with this person, and Trayson's like, yeah, okay, this person. And Orkin ends up losing, rewinding time, and then choosing someone else again. And he does it like 5 times because he's not happy with the result. Or there's one point where Trayson gets so pissed off he incriminates both of them and basically has them sentenced to death.
Oh.
Like,
Whoops.
they really don't. That's why I say it's a buddy cop film, because they really don't like each other. And there's that always that clashing in a buddy cop film where so yeah. It's a really good and really funny book. I've been very much enjoying it. I need to get back into listening to it, to be honest. It's been a few days. So anyway, the Drukhari.
The Drukhari.
Yeah. Essentially, the Eldar physiology in general means they see things, they smell things, they hear things, they touch it. Like all of their senses are much more perceptive and much more sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
And their emotions are so much stronger than a human's. They're much more intelligent. They can process mentally so much faster. Which is why there are probably times when it seems like they're, dodging bullets even, because they are literally superhuman.
Yeah, they were made as warriors in the thing, so it makes sense they'd be the most effective they could be.
Which is why they're more dangerous than humans. But, you got Space Marines, who obviously are also superhuman, so... Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing how much the Imperium is like, oh, beware the mutant, evil, vile mutants. But that guy over there with 6 hearts and 3 stomachs, he's cool.
We made them so good.
we made them mutants, so that's fine.
Humanity.
Yeah, But that means that not only are they kind of their experience of the galaxy and their experience of everything is kind of heightened, but also they're kind of, if we're talking in terms of I guess value, their soul, for the sake of a better word, their essence that goes into the warp, is much stronger. It's much more valuable, because they're all fairly psychic. They all have this huge attachment to the warp.
Yeah.
And it means that obviously they affect, even the ones who aren't psychers are psychic. They have kind of latent psychic.
Yeah, so they're all going to be valuable and
yeah,
damn tasty.
Yeah, damn tasty. Finger looking good. But that's what basically had them. That's what basically led to them. The whole birth of Slaanesh.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a positive in a lot of ways, but it ultimately ended up being the thing that kind of screwed them over.
Which they will have to deal with, and do
Yeah.
deal with.
Yeah.
I know. Who do you think's got the worst deal of it, the Drukhari or the Aeldari with their stones?
God, worst deal. I would say I feel worse for the Eldar because they've really had a rough time of it, you know.
But the
Like,
Drukhari were Eldar for a while.
Well, yeah, but they, you know, you did say the Drukhari or the Eldari. So,
Yeah,
you know.
I guess but if we
Try and catch
go
me
to the
out with your own
split
words.
where they split and then from then on.
Yeah, I would say after the split, the Eldar are much more tragic. Like as much as they're arrogant assholes, and it's funny when one of their leaders arrogantly gets his hand cut off by a Necron overseer, which is just a fun, like people have seen that.
Yeah, that was in the 40. Yeah, that was in the second 5 hours of painting.
Yeah, the 40,000 extra layers. Yeah, they're still like, you still feel sorry for them because there are so many instances of like them almost getting wiped out by some horrific thing. You can understand them being paranoid assholes who are desperately trying to save their race from extinction.
Yeah.
Whereas the Drukhari, like, they may have instances where they get shat on by, by fate or by, some tyrannids like burning in and being like, we may eat you all. I don't know why they sound like that, but
that's Necrons sound like that.
Did I say Necrons?
Yeah.
Sorry, I meant tyrannids.
Oh, okay.
I also don't know why the tyrannids would sound like that.
I mean,
we might eat you all.
Better than the Necrons sounding like that, though.
Yeah, the Necrons sound kind of Egyptian.
Yeah.
And also, sidebar, just because we were talking about it, the narration and voice acting of the narrator in the Infinite and Divine is really good.
Oh.
Yeah. So just to touch on something, this is not a Dark Eldar.
No, this is
part of the Dark Eldar forces. It is Xenos known as Sslyth.
Yes. I know he is not a Drukhari, but he is, as you say, one of their little races that are submissive to them, I suppose. So
this is why I said to Tash, "Are you sure?" When she said, "I want to paint that snake."
It's a snake boy.
It's like, yeah, it's part of the Dark Eldar forces, but
Well, a lot of the models were quite similar to the Howling, the Eldar ones, and I just didn't really want to paint it again because I hated her.
Yeah, that's true.
So I was like, no, I don't think I'm going to do that.
And has still not forgiven her or let it go.
No, I mean, her name is a pretty resounding,
It's still bitch.
It's still bitch. She's still called bitch.
Yeah.
Like, that is just her name. At least this one's called Snake Boy. So.
Yeah. So going onwards towards the birth of Slaanesh, essentially the Eldar, just while they were still all the Eldar, it took them thousands of years, but they descended from kind of this, And you can see it happening with any race, really. If you reach the pinnacle and you just kind of stop there, and then you spend a few thousand years hanging around existing, it's like you're gonna get fucking bored.
Now what? Like,
Yeah, so they started just pursuing almost like any type. It'd be the equivalent for humans of, you know, starting to skydive, and you know, like they're like, hey, we'll make pleasure cults and drug circles, and eventually doing ritual sacrifices and violence and killing each other. And it's just like, what else are you gonna do? Like, really?
like plenty of other things.
Oh yeah, totally. But, you know, once as a race you've kind of done everything, it does leave a bit of a.
It gets more extremes and extremes.
Yeah. It's very understandable how it went that way. Totally their own fault, yeah. Although, like, all of the Eldar who went out into the Craftworlds and stuff were the ones who didn't like the way things were going. Like, it wasn't like Slaanesha's birth and everyone and all the Eldar were like, oh my god, we've made a terrible mistake. Quick, let's like. They'd already left. They'd already gone. Like, same with the Exodites. I think same with the Harlequins as well, probably. The difference for the Dark Eldar, for the Drukhari, is that they were already kind of sequestered by themselves. And it wasn't because they were like so disgusted by what the other Eldar were doing that they went away in a huff. It's that what they were doing was so depraved and fucked up, they created a space in the warp to go and do it in secret and private.
Yeah, this is so much that we will get frowned upon by everyone. So it's just
yeah, like even the ritual sacrifice, violent, hedonistic pleasure cults would look down on us. Therefore, we will hide what we're doing. And it's like, well, if you're hiding something from those people, you fucked up.
What are you doing over there? Man. Silly Drukhari.
The interesting thing, though, is a lot of the richer, like, high nobility and aristocracy of the Eldar at the time were so rich and so, like, you know, influential that, you know, they kind of started off like forming their own pleasure cults, and, you know, it kind of like revolved around the important people and all of that type of thing. And there was a lot of kind of, you know, worship and sacrifice and all that kind of type of stuff. They decided to move where they basically practiced all this stuff into the webway, and then set up a big city. They essentially constructed an entire subdomain in the webway just for themselves.
It confuses me because it's like, is it a made thing? Is it something that just exists? Like the webways?
So, here.
Sorry.
So, no, because this one is an important one, because we've talked about the Eldar and the old ones and the Necrons, a little bit about the webway and stuff. It's essentially, it's an extra dimension in the Immaterium.
Yeah.
So it would be, I think probably the best way to describe it would be like, you jump into a swimming pool, you're going from somewhere where you can breathe to underwater where you can't. But you take like you take like a tub with you on over your head.
Okay.
And you kind of like create a space where you can breathe inside, and you can kind of leave and then go out, you know, like that type of thing.
Yeah.
Or like, I think possibly even better analogy would be like the tunnel, going from the UK to France.
Yeah. Channel tunnel.
Like it goes under the sea. You know, like it's a way of traveling through. Like you could stop there. You could dig out a big area and build a city in there. You know, like that type of thing. But at the same time, you're still under the sea.
Yeah.
So that's the best way I can describe it.
Okay.
You know, kind of.
They've just taken the yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right then.
I mean, it was built by the old ones, and they had, as far as I know, they had like a decent connection to the warp, and I think they had some inklings of where things would go with the warp. Which is why they didn't want to mess with it too much, and they build the webway instead of like the Imperium does. They just like punch a hole through the warp and travel because it's convenient.
Yeah. That does not surprise me in the least.
It's an interesting thing because do you know Nightcrawler in X-Men?
Yeah.
He does a similar thing. When he teleports, he actually travels through the
warp.
No, wait, he travels through another dimension.
Okay.
But
he's not there long enough to kind of.
No, he doesn't. So this is
talking about X-Men now.
this is stretching my knowledge a little bit because I watched some X-Men, but I don't really care that much. I did enjoy X-Men Evolution, which is like an alternate reality where they're all at high school together.
Yeah.
And Nightcrawler is there's a genius mutant who is good with technology, and he creates a device that slows him down while he teleports.
Ooh.
So he gets to see the dimension he travels through. But doing that actually leaves his teleporting holes open so that the weird creatures can come through, and then they start coming through and like fucking things up, and they have to deal with them.
They're like, never mind, we'll just end that experiment.
It's actually very similar to the warp, weirdly enough.
Yeah. So the warp.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's I'm trying to think of the best way to kind of describe it past that.
What I'm thinking of, and using other brands here, I mean, the water one's a pretty good analogy for me. It's like Atlantis with its shield going under the water.
Yeah. A little bit like that. You know Stargate.
Yeah.
So
that's my just reference.
No, I know, but so it's essentially the webway gates are kind of not really, but I guess a little bit like the Stargates.
Yeah.
Except for that tunnel that they go through when they go through the Stargates is surrounded by demons, and it's like another dimension, and they're all desperately wanting to eat you and stuff like that. And it's a bit more of a it doesn't translate you, but it's a lot more of a, it's like a shortcut almost, I guess. And the Emperor was trying to build like a human webway off the original webway, so that they wouldn't have to
utilize that one.
Yeah.
My brain is just like, it's like a fold in paper. The paper that you're passing through still exists, but you can get to the side very quick. Got it.
Yeah.
I don't know why that's the easiest. Anyway.
I'm trying to think, because it is like that, but it's also not exactly like that, because it has its own space. It's okay. The best way I would say is like you have the warp, you have reality, real space. And it's like those two are like pressing against each other almost. And then you have like a really thin layer of like an extra dimension where you can kind of like it's kind of partly in both, but not really, but it is its own space as well. I think I've probably described this wrong, but that's
too many ways.
Yeah, the warp is difficult to describe, and it is
no nonsense. That's what it is.
Yeah. It's extra dimensional. It's weird. It's crazy, but they travel through it. So stop asking questions.
Sorry for this interactive show.
So yeah, we have to go all the way back to the Dark Eldar now. God. So all of these like really rich, really decadent Eldari nobility were like, man, we've got these sects, we've got these followers, we want to really fuck shit up. So they built a section in the webway specifically for them and all of this disturbing stuff they're doing.
Ultra depraved stuff. Okay.
And because the Eldar were going down this route, it was very appealing. So all of these kind of like, let's call them pleasure cult kings or pleasure cult leaders, they kept dragging more and more of the Eldar into it, and like that started to spread not just from them in their little section where they're like, yay, let's fuck shit up, but also into the Eldar in general, and it was like a rot that just kept spreading.
Yeah.
And because they were going through these extremes of pleasure and pain and torture and agony and ecstasy, that's where the reflections started to shift and basically form together in the warp. Because their emotions were so strong and so raw, they basically, and the warp is like a reflection of reality.
Yeah,
of real space.
Yeah.
So it was happening on such a big, wide level that it just formed into Slaanesh. And then, as I remember, there were a couple of rituals and things like that. Like some people who were just like completely corrupt and chaotic, just birthed Slaanesh.
That's what you get.
Yeah.
Oops, too much paint there. So
you have the Exodites who went to kind of colony planets, very, very far away and basically hidden, where they live with dinosaurs.
With dinosaurs, yep.
They also they have a world spirits, which are essentially like, I think there's actually one in the Infinite and the Divine.
Oh.
Trazen goes in to steal something and fucks up a whole load of Exodites and then gets eaten by a Tyrannosaurus Rex. No, sorry, it's a Carnosaur.
You're spoiling it.
This is right at the beginning. It's not a spoiler. It's fucking funny. He's just running around and then suddenly he's like, I appear to have been chopped in half by a Carnosaur. So yeah, the Exodites are pretty fanatical about their plan. Honestly, the Eldar in general are very fanatical about protecting main worlds and like where the Exodites live.
Yeah, I knew that a little bit because because it appeared once in our tabletop that we were in, but I had no idea why it was. I just was like, yeah, they like their planet, right? Like, who doesn't?
Yeah, the Eldar, they'll like, they'll destroy 100 million human souls just to protect 1,000 souls of Eldar on a maiden world. Like no question. They'd be like, yeah, that's a perfectly fine exchange.
It is, I think.
Yeah, well, humans kind of suck. So. And then just before the Eldar Empire collapsed and Slaanesh was born, that's when all the Craftworld Eldar, they were like, okay, this is just, I'm not down with this shit, let's leave. And they all jumped into their Craftworlds and like shot off. Some of the Craftworlds were so late in leaving that they almost, or actually did, get sucked into the Eye of Terror, which is basically the big hole in reality where Slaanesh was born. There was one Eldar Craftworld that like spent about 500 years just trying to stay on the edge of the Eye of Terror because they couldn't quite get out.
Oh.
And they eventually managed it, and then they ran into the Tyranids, and I think they got eaten.
Oh no.
Yeah, no, there's some very sad stories about some dead Craftworlds. Quite a few of them have been destroyed.
Well, Tyranids are hungry, so it's fine.
Yeah. You're desperately setting up this whole narrative of you liking the Tyranids as well. And I'm like, Tash, you're not going to like the Tyranids the same way you like the Necrons. the Tyranids didn't start off as some like, you know, wide-eyed and unfortunate race. Like they literally have no like.
They have no redeeming features, Natasha.
Well, so think about this. If an Eldar dies,
yes,
their essence, their soul goes to the Immaterium, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, if it's not in a rock.
Yeah. And the Chaos Gods can get stronger and, you know, consume and whatever. If a Tyranid dies, like even the massive Tyranids who are like, you know, the size of planets. If a Tyranid dies, the warp gets nothing.
Okay.
Tyranids are a hive mind. So a giant planet-sized ship is the equivalent of like a fleck of skin to the Tyranids.
Like, what is that supposed to make me feel? Not sympathy for them?
Well, so this is the thing: is the Tyranids, like, you know,
I guess just their consciousness won't like disappear, right? It'll just be I don't know.
Well, if you have a Tyranid invasion on a planet and you destroy it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That would be the equivalent of like you losing a toenail. You know, you don't feel sorry for the toenail because it's not alive, it doesn't have a consciousness.
Well, who's developed this research?
What do you mean?
Whose viewpoint is this? What do the Tyranids have to say?
Well, we don't know because they don't really communicate and
beyond nom nom nom.
Well, I mean, this is the thing is, if you want to talk to the like, there's no actual evidence aside from I think one ultramarine librarian like tapped into the hive mind of the Tyranids.
What champ?
But basically, the very high likelihood is there's one giant entity outside the galaxy that is controlling things, or maybe multiple, possibly.
Well, still, it would amuse me to like them.
if you want to like the Tyranids, I'm not going to stop you. It's going to be difficult. Yeah. So
we got a bit distracted.
It's good. When we come back, we'll talk about the Drukhari.
When we come back, we'll talk about Drukhari. Yes, promise.